Okay, well, we have a quorum and it's 11:02. So I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone who's here, staff and members and everyone. And are there any announcements? I don't have an announcement to make. Are there any announcements that anyone wishes to make?
You know, I'm reliable for a lot of things, and one of them is announcements. So I'm Lila Blanchard, and I am on the Programs and Services Subcommittee temporarily, as well as and I'm also on the Policy and Budget Subcommittee, but I work for Rubicon Programs, and so Rubicon Programs is hiring, as many agencies are, and I just like to use my different platforms to call folks attention to our website and our careers spot. So I will put that website in the chat. Next Friday, we'll also be having a stepping stone ceremony where folks who have completed virtual workshops are going to be celebrated and set up for the rest of their program participation. They're really fun. We often have, representatives from the elected officials community speak there. And so I will also put the link for that into chat as well. And thank you for that space for that announcement.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, is there any public comment on any item that's under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on this agenda? Okay, not hearing any. Now we have the minutes to approve, the approval of the minutes of February 25 of this committee that are attached. I hope everyone has had a chance to review those. And are there any comments or any revisions that need to be made to the minutes? Okay.
I see some slight errors on my side. I'm the one that did them, so nothing that would impact the content too much. Just obviously there is announcements. I put no, so I would just make that change. But
okay.
And I think I had Nicole's name here and didn't provide context there, so I would just remove that. So
okay.
Just some minor.
Sure. Okay. So do I have a motion to adopt the minutes as adjusted? Well, I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
This is Lila, and I can second it.
Great. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? And I notice this is okay. Any abstentions or anyone opposed? Actually, there's just the two of us, so I guess we're okay. So we'll just proceed with the minutes being accepted. There is a vote. So
yeah, I would just do roll call vote real quick for
yes.
you guys.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
And Lila.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have on the agenda item number 4, review and update work plan. And would you, Nicole, could you?
I'm gonna pull up the Word doc on it because if we're gonna make edits, I prefer to try to do them in the meeting itself.
And can you, would you, yeah, great, wonderful. Would you, okay. And I assume what we should do is just take them section by section. We can wait a minute or two to be able to read everything that's in this first section on research projects and advocacy. And then if anyone has any suggested modification or questions, we can deal with that, whether it be Lila, me, or any of the staff that are on the call here. And since this is, I'm new to this whole process, the only questions that I have are related to the timeline. So it is August, has August been determined to be the best month to do this with the plan?
Before we get there, I don't know if you guys, because I know my follow-up was for me to provide an update on the Measure X funding. And I was going to provide a link in the chat to basically the Board of Supervisors meeting in November that provided the adoption of how the funding was going to be allocated, specifically to the areas that you guys were interested in, which was housing and restorative justice. Beyond that resource, there's not a whole lot to update because we are still trying to internally figure out where this work is going to land as far as a host of the funding, with the exception of restorative justice. We know that falls into probation's. We'll be hosting that initiative. So you could update the plan to state that you'd be partnering with ORJ in that specific piece, but.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Where would you?
So I pasted that in the chat.
Okay.
And
where
because the Measure X is quite a large initiative, I can just really quickly walk you through this link so that when you navigate it on your own, you're able to kind of get to it. So this is, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
I'm not sure how I can make this larger on a actual browser perspective. I think I have to.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I've looked at this over and over in the past, and it's a tough one.
So I would draw your attention to the agenda item D5, this board order, the background, because it's I think the background was too large to put in this actual D5 has, let me download it here. Just a background updates of the overall initiative and how they're allocating funding. And again, I'm not an expert in this because I do not work, did not, do this report, this staff report, but just wanted to point you to the resource, right? I reviewed this for the first time myself this week. And then it kind of goes into where some of the funding is going. I think the ones that you guys were interested was this community restorative justice piece. So there's that $2 million there, and I will show you where the attachment is that speaks to what's being done. The overall proposal for that $2 million. And let's see, the housing piece, where did it go? The local housing trust fund, and then the permanent supportive housing here. So that is that. And if I go back here, you can pull up the community-based restorative justice proposal.
There's B12, permanent supportive housing.
Yeah, so B11, B12, and then B22. And we're not going to review this in great detail here, but this is an example of the proposal for that restorative justice piece. So I guess the recommendation is that this group would review this to see if this is fulfilling what CAB wants to do with restorative justice. And that there is obviously a lot of work to do still, right? This is just, okay, here's the funding, here's the proposal, what we're going to do with it. But there's more work to partner with ORJ. We're still, internally figuring out where does this go. So there's not much of an update in it from a detailed perspective, right? Because this is fairly new and still being rolled out. So I just wanted to at least give you guys something to
Sure.
sink your teeth into and review that material.
Nicole, do you see the need for certain things to be identified and incorporated in the minutes maybe for our next meeting?
In the minutes?
I'm sorry, in
or in
the
work
agenda,
plan?
in the agenda, I'm sorry, not minutes, in the agenda.
So some of the call outs was maybe, and I know that Patrice is in the background trying to get some more clarity. It might be that someone maybe from Measure X can come and present. I still think it's worth the board still collaborating with Measure X, possibly
Yes.
joining meetings to start those conversations too.
Yes, yes,
That seems a good first point of contact is to connect with someone from Measure X, whether it's attending a meeting or finding out who the chair is and contacting that. And we can definitely point you to who that individual is, but you can also see it in some of the recent agendas and minutes from that Measure X.
so would we want to keep August in the timeline? Or would we want
August, I
to?
believe, was specific to when we were doing white papers and research. I don't know, depending on if you are being a thought partner in these different spaces with housing restorative justice, that timeline might look different versus if you're doing more additional research on your own to inform a white paper, that would be something different. And I think that's where you guys landed last month was, are you going to do further research or partner with agencies in the county or external partners that are doing work in this space?
That's
I see
Lila.
Lila has her hand up.
Thank you. So going back a step real quick, Nicole, is it possible to highlight those parts of the document that you just mentioned and send that out individually to the members on this so that they can review that? Because I'd love to get in there and absorb that, and it would be so helpful as opposed to trying to find it, in that huge document. Thank you for that. And then thank you for that question, Dale, about timeline. Yeah, we've shifted, from trying to create these documents that are going to, inform the recommendations. And I don't know that we're committing yet to we're going to make a white paper this year, but we do have these 3 areas. And so I think that the timeline really needs to be, equivalent to how long we'll be focused on these. I am so glad that housing is listed here, and I really, want to keep housing. I know that we, yeah, so that's my comment on that.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering if by just listing 1 month, is that sufficient, or should we list several months or a range? I don't know. I'm just wondering what our experience was. Denise?
Yeah, thanks, Dale. I'm having trouble surrounding the timeline, understanding how that relates to the priority research projects and the benchmarks, because as I look at these, I'm not seeing them as research projects. I'm seeing them as priority service areas, not necessarily priority research projects. And in which case, the timeline is going to be really different depending upon what it is that you're trying to accomplish here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a research project would have a target of an ending date, I would assume.
Right, and it would likely have and a good duration. It's not just going to have
Yes,
like
yes.
1 month. It's going to be over a period of time.
Yes.
And then the next question for me surrounding this is what as these 3 items, if your intention is indeed to undertake a research project, these 3 items in my mind do not identify what that research topic or research question would be, because as they're structured right now, they, again, as I said, they really speak to services and service collaborations and service priorities and more of an advocacy as opposed to a research project. So I'm a little confused by that.
Yeah, I am too. But you know, I'm new to this whole process, so that's why I'm not sure. But if I look at August, then then I'm wondering, well, is August the month that we do all of this, or is it that we complete this by August or whatever? You know, it leaves it a big question in my mind under
Well,
the timeline.
Absolutely, I get it. And what I know about the restorative justice aspect is that, you know, the county is moving in that direction. We've got Measure X funds to expand that. So you could almost say that that's ongoing. Or
Yeah.
if the task is to, you know, as it's pointed out here, expand restorative justice within the county, we can say that's happening. So that's done, and it's done because of Measure X funding, and ORJ is going to be in the process of hiring somebody to do this. So that's done, whereas expanding housing resources, again, you could almost say the way this is written, that's done too, given the document that Nicole has presented out. So that's where I'm confused.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually, I'm sorry, I see Terry and Lila's hand up, and Lila, I know you've got some more background about this.
It's okay. I mean, I think we're basically just having an open discussion, and Terry raised his hand ahead of mine. So let's hear Terry and then I can chime in. It's basically just a suggestion of how to modify this.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm just adding my confusion as a newcomer to it, because I'm not clear on how much is it our work to be doing independent research. I think I heard Nicole saying something about other groups in the county who are doing research and are doing other work that we can connect with and find out what their findings are. I just want to make sure we're not reproducing something that in a silo that somebody else is already doing great work on. So that's my question.
Yeah, great point about not reproducing. This work plan is an evolving document and has history to it. And so, I want to say that this plan was, really built off of the 2017 year, maybe 2018 year, where they did produce a white paper on restorative justice. Actually, I don't think that, excuse me, 2019, I remember seeing a white paper that was presented actually on transportation and later hours for transportation. And so that's the last time that I've seen like an actual paper come out of, this subcommittee. And I don't know that there's an expectation that it has to be a paper. The last year was, I think, focused on learning more about restorative justice and landing on the importance of housing, you know, for all of the reentry participants, you know, if I had to summarize last year. And then, yeah, that the year before, you know, had a different focus and a different makeup. And, you know, there were folks who really wanted to do some site visits. And so my recommendation for this is, you know, let's not use the term research project. I think that this year, you know, this group gets to decide, and we don't have an idea in our minds right now for research projects. So I would probably, you know, change the initiative to, you know, advocacy and support of CAB policy platform, and just take out the research project. And then, you know, these other pieces here, I think that there is still work that we can do with them, because we need to learn, we need to see if there's gaps, we need to follow, we need to maybe enhance. But yeah,
Yeah,
there is work that's happening, but maybe we can be a part of
yes.
that work and enhance it.
I like that. And thank you, Nicole, for making those adjustments in the initiative column. That makes sense. And also, Lila, your comment about the importance of housing. The county is doing a wonderful focus, an extensive focus on homelessness, and so obviously housing is a critical issue regarding homelessness. So anything that we can do to encourage and enhance housing. And also, I noticed I'm on the Advisory Council on Aging, and the aging area is also focusing on housing also for elderly and disabled people. So yeah, okay. I'm wondering, under timeline, shouldn't we just say ongoing or continuing or something like that instead of?
Oh, you just muted yourself, Dale, or got muted somehow.
Oh, shoot, sorry. Did you hear what I?
Myself, sorry.
Oh, okay. So did you hear what I said about housing earlier?
Yeah, you were talking about the timeline, and ongoing sounds good to me. This, and you know, we might identify other timelines as we move forward, but
Sure.
these are things that we can focus on the whole year.
Well, and obviously this document, when we leave it today, assuming we vote on it, it's not locked in concrete. So if circumstances occur during the year, we can always modify this, but at least this gives us a focal point. That's the way I see it.
Perfect.
Denise?
I'd like to thank you. I would like to bring your attention to another layer of the Measure X funds directed towards housing. And this is where I think CAB can be really important in advocating for funds that are directly dedicated to the reentry population. The Measure X funds for PSH and other housing are for the broad community. And what we know for individuals in reentry is that housing is still an issue. Permanent supportive housing is key. It's expensive. It's not something that we have readily available. Further, we have a list for housing services in H3 that is often 1,000 people or more, and over 90% of those individuals qualify for permanent supportive housing. And individuals then get prioritized. And mainly those individuals are families and elderly populations, which are really, really important populations. But what we don't have is dedicated funding or some proportion dedicated to housing services and permanent supportive housing for individuals reentering the community from custody.
Good point.
And so that's what I think is a really important thing that CAB might consider surrounding its advocacy, is showing up at the Board of Supervisors meetings or the Measure X meetings when these kinds of discussions are taking place, and making a request for some proportion of those units, some proportion of those funds to be dedicated to our population. And I just mean the broad reentry population, because otherwise, from my experience, kids are going to get prioritized first, elderly are going to get prioritized first. The people that are going to get prioritized last or low priority are going to be individuals with a criminal record.
Yes.
They will never get housing unless we prioritize and have dedicated housing for that subpopulation.
I agree totally.
So that would be one of my recommendations for moving forward with what you guys could potentially do.
So I'm wondering if we need to include something in this document, someplace that basically, identifies that focus that you're talking about, Denise.
Well, it could be something as simple as, you've got this item for expanding housing resources within the county for reentry beyond AB 109. And it could be subsumed under there surrounding an advocacy for Measure X funds to, be dedicated or some proportion committed to the reentry population, AB 109 and reentry population.
Do we know, I'm sure we know this, but do we have someone from this subcommittee who would like, who knows or would be able to attend the Measure X meetings and when those happen?
Yeah, I attended their meeting yesterday.
Okay. Nice. Okay. And those are now on a monthly basis, right?
Yes, I don't remember when the next one is. I can look on my calendar, but they did make that determination.
Yeah. Phil, do you want some more support in that meeting, or are you comfortable if your name is listed under the names of folks who, like Dale, to attend Measure X and make recommendations for housing?
Well, it would be nice if there was more. I don't mind being one of the identified people, but it would be nice if there's more than one of us, just in case I have a conflict and I can't be there at a particular meeting. If there was one other person that was identified, that would be nice and helpful.
I just found the next scheduled meeting is April 20th, and they said that the standard meeting date and time is the third Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So whoever works with that time, third Wednesday at 5, but next meeting is April 20th.
Yeah, I have that down here. Yeah.
And do we maybe need to have a conversation about what our ask will be? Like if we're going to ask for a certain amount? I liked that Denise we could have that conversation now, or we could make sure that we have it at the next meeting and then, have enough folks there to raise that concern on a fairly regular basis.
One suggestion I would have is instead of waiting to April 20th, you guys can reach out to the chair of Measure X and have a phone call or a Zoom independent of a public meeting, just to have some dialogue, just so that you're not waiting until April 20th to kind of get feedback. That might be one way to get some of your questions answered.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I see Terry,
One of you, just only because of quorum issues, that would do that.
yeah, and thanks Terry for posting in chat that you're not available. So at least we know that.
It might
Yeah.
make, oh, sorry, go ahead, Dale.
Well, I have lots of committees, but none of them are at 5 o'clock at night. So I don't think I'll ever have a conflict. But I would still think it might be nice to have at least one other person from CAB attending.
I can come to some of the meetings, the Measure X meetings, especially if it's a meeting that we identify, like, you know, we need to have a couple people because we're going to try to speak. I'm wondering, Dale, since you've been attending the meetings and they might know who you are, and because of quorum, we can only have, so there's only two members right now on programs, and I thought there were
Three.
three.
There's
Oh,
three right now.
so we can't do two. Okay. Dale, would you be comfortable having a conversation? Like, we want to advocate for this, you know, heads up, and what do you suggest? And, you know, kind of talking it through with them.
Yeah, that's fine. But also, I'm wondering if maybe there is another committee, the CAB committee, that might have some interest also, so that there could be a person from another committee. So we might end up having a person from two different committees.
Mhm. Well, I'm also on the policy and budget subcommittee, so yeah. Are you thinking of someone to go, yeah, occasionally or every time?
Well, whatever, but at least not run into the quorum issue that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Since
And
you're
that would only, I think, come up for the phone call, but it would be okay if we went to a public meeting together, as long as we weren't communicating with each other, you know, during the public meeting.
It's my understanding, if you are communicating at all in the meeting, even public comment, and you two being at the same meeting, that presents a Brown Act issue, but I don't know if Dawn is
Yes.
still on, if she's able to
Yeah.
verify that.
No, I think it is. I think it is a,
But
yeah, I think it is a Brown Act
because
issue.
you're talking about CAB business, so.
Yeah, meeting and it's publicly noticed, and you don't, you know, have a conversation about CAB at that meeting.
You're a little broken up there, Dawn, but what I believe I heard you say, as long as they're not talking about CAB.
Exactly. If, as long as they don't have a conversation about CAB while they're at the meeting, they'll be okay.
But I
It sounds
think
like
the
you guys
Brown
are
Act,
going to have a conversation about CAB. That would be the purpose of you being there, right?
yep, but I think the Brown Act would prevent us from having a conversation outside of that meeting too. If it's a quorum,
Right.
we can't have any discussions without a meeting. So
But if we showed up and we acted independently, like if he said, this would be really great, and I separately said, this would be really great, like, would that be okay?
no, I don't think so.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
no.
We could obviously find out from county council, but I know that we have to be very, very cautious. And the Brown Act is very specific and broad.
Mhm.
Is it possible to get somebody else from the full body who's not on this committee
Yes,
to try to attend?
that's what I was thinking, Denise.
Crawford,
Yes,
as the chair of CAB, maybe,
Oh, that's a great idea.
since he's the
Great
leader
idea.
of- Well, you're all leaders, but
Yeah.
official CAB chair. So
Yeah.
this is an example of like a committee that might be someone that's officially assigned to, independent of just this particular subcommittee, just overall for the full body, to inform the full body.
yeah, I'll be glad to contact Crawford if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea, because part of the I would say the work plan of the outreach committee is to define boards and commissions that the full body should be or CAB should be having participating on. And this is a perfect example. So
Yeah, okay,
I haven't seen instances where more than one person is doing participating. It's usually just one individual, one CAB member that is assigned to go to that particular meeting and provide a report out to the full body. So
yeah, okay.
I would also like to just throw in another kind of thought for your consideration. What I've seen with some of our juvenile justice program funds is, and this may be, give you some ideas about what some of the possibilities are for some of the Measure X housing funds, is one of our juvenile justice committees made a decision to spend 10% of their annual budget on prevention, for example. So that would be one way to have a discussion surrounding these Measure X housing funds is it possible for these funds, for 10% of them, let's say, to be dedicated to the AB 109 and reentry population? Another way would be to think about the number of units or something, or some percentage of them that would go to this population. I mean, I think it's particularly tricky because it is, housing is such an issue for everybody in the community, but for those who are the most at risk for multi-system engagement, if we don't have any kind of dedicated housing. I mean, you know, my advocacy kind of position on this, but my point is more that there are multiple ways to think about it where it would give the Measure X community an opportunity, or committee an opportunity to say, oh, well, maybe we can't do 10%, but maybe we'll do 5%, or maybe we can't do percentage, but we can do, you know, units, counts. So to give them some choices, I guess is what I'm saying, while also an opportunity to support the rationale for
Yeah,
dedicated beds, basically.
yeah,
still would strongly encourage to reach offline the chair.
Absolutely.
Because they have a large initiative and they might be agendizing housing specifically for a certain month for discussion, and they would be able to kind of lead you and like, yeah, maybe not April's the best day, but maybe the month of May would be better. Just so that you're not attending a meeting that you won't be able to get the answers to your questions.
Really good point, Nicole, really good.
And I'm happy to give you the name of that individual.
great. And I see in Nicole, you have highlighted the word research, and we need to,
Just wanted to highlight that to the group that you might want to.
yeah, let's eliminate it. We've decided, yeah. That'll be, by eliminating it, it's going to be consistent with the initiative. Yeah,
Maybe we just want to say undertake and brainstorm priority projects and advocacy.
ah. Yeah, Great. Are we ready to move on to the next section of published reports?
Yes, thank you so much, Dale, for making that call either with yourself or with Crawford to the chair, and then, you know, definitely letting us all know on the subcommittee how we can, you know, plug in and support those efforts.
Okay, so the next one, publish reports on existing program and services. Shouldn't it be programs and services?
And I feel like this is another spot where we're way over the top and we're just borrowing language. I don't know that we're going to publish any reports. We will probably have survey results, but that's different than reports.
Yeah,
So maybe it's just share survey results. Yeah, publish survey.
oh, yes, okay.
I go back, what is the purpose of the survey? Because maybe that's what should be underlined in the initiative is what is the purpose of that? Is that to maybe update, oh boy.
Well, we do
Yeah, I
have,
don't know. I just put that back on you.
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
sure.
as an attachment to this agenda, we do have, ending this meeting, focusing on or looking at a survey document.
Mhm.
And so I think that this is in relation to that.
But it still speaks to like the purpose of it, right? And maybe that's what should be identified here in the initiative. As we talk about, as Lila said, you're not really looking to necessarily publish survey results, but maybe you are looking to, you know, again, kind of going back to the same question of what is the purpose of the survey?
We want to conduct a survey on existing programs instead of publish survey results.
Right, but it's not just conducting a survey. The real question goes back even
To the purpose.
To the purpose. What are the objectives
Well,
of?
maybe Nicole, if you could scan down to the survey and we could peek at it, there might be something there that would give us a clue for verbiage up here.
Well, while we're scanning down there, I mean, I can pitch in. I feel like, you know, what it does is it gives this committee and it gives the service providers an opportunity to provide feedback around program services. I don't know if there is really another spot where this happens in this way. So it is like a communication tool, and it's two-way. I think it's so that the subcommittee, or excuse me, the service providers can express ideas. And it's also so that the programs and services subcommittee can, you know, receive and incorporate those ideas into their work and suggestions.
Yeah, but the survey basically it covers there are two points of focus, it seems to me, on the survey. What is being done? So you're asking government and CBOs what is being done, and importance, and then what do you think should be done or is needed? So you're talking, Denise, about purpose. Seems to me that that we can maybe incorporate some verbiage in here, but it has to do with with identifying what is being done and what might be needed.
So maybe the initiative could look something like conduct survey among program providers surrounding service needs. Something broad like that,
Yes.
right?
I
Because
like
that's
that.
what you're gonna do.
Yeah. Should we commit ourselves also? We're going to conduct it. Should we commit ourselves also to publish it? Or so should both of those words be in there, conduct and publish?
Well, I don't know what you mean by publish. Are you talking about a white paper? From what I saw with regard to, and the survey that we conducted, or that the ORJ put forward and supported CAB with conducting a couple years ago, those results were generalized and presented back to CAB in a public meeting. And so they're published as products presented in a public meeting. But I don't know exactly what you mean by publish.
I agree. Or present. We could say
Present.
conduct and present.
And, you know, you could also, I mean, just conducting also means that that's next logical step. So I don't even know that you need to say present, because it could be in the section, the next section over, the column over, that I can't see the title on. But just conducting it means that you're going to develop it, you're going to analyze it, and you're going to have findings that you're going to share.
Well, but we don't want it to be conducted and then put on a shelf. The sharing is important after the conducting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And theoretically, that would be in. So I hear you. It's an important aspect of it. So yeah, conduct and share findings.
Yeah. Yes.
I get it. Okay.
So Nicole, can we modify that wording?
Conduct and present survey among program providers surrounding service needs.
Conduct, I would say conduct survey among program providers surrounding service needs and present findings. How's that?
I think the reason that government and CBO is listed here is because the survey is portioned off in both of those areas.
Yes, and we did that primarily for ease, for basically the ease of the respondent. And
Yes, yes.
so it was for skip patterns fundamentally.
Okay.
So, but yes, that's correct. Conduct survey among program among program service, conduct survey of, conduct survey of program service needs and present findings. I think that seems clear to me.
We also added government and CBO because there was a time when the government departments were not feeling like they really needed to respond to this. And so we were getting all of the CBOs responding, and like little to no response from government CBOs. So I mean, I like this. I think it looks good, and we will have to like keep in mind, you know, April responses. And so maybe we even, you know, have like, you know, survey finalized by, you know, when, just a few more points there. We probably need to have the survey finalized and approved by this month, which I don't know if that's going to happen today. If we want to do it by April responses, you know, so
It seemed to be pretty, I think that's a pretty, boy, I don't think that's gonna make it,
yeah, so maybe we need to adjust
quite
that.
honestly, because I think there needs to be more conversation surrounding what the details of the survey are. And I don't think we're gonna get through all of that today.
Okay, thank you for that heads up. So maybe we're looking for survey finalized by April, and then, I mean, as soon as you finalize the survey, then it can be sent out. So maybe, you know, April and May responses.
Well, let me just back you up a second, Lila. So the two things that are really important that take time is that we need to give our partners time to consider the survey. And we've asked in the past broad open-ended questions, and those require some thought and consideration. And we also just need to honor their other demands. And so I think it makes sense to give them several weeks to respond rather than one.
Yes.
So maybe 2 weeks to respond with a reminder in the middle. The other thing that's going to take some time is for us to gather that data and examine it and analyze it. It's all going to be narrative data. We have done it in the past. It's not that awful much, but it does take time for our staff to download it, to review it, to summarize it for you. And I think we need at least a couple of weeks to do that. At least.
Yeah, that's fine.
So to say responses in April and May, I think what I'm indirectly saying is that's not realistic for our staff, as well as for our colleagues. I would be more inclined to say June.
May and June, or just June?
I wouldn't even say May. I
Okay,
would say June.
Maybe we
That's
can align
great.
on a
We will
response
have
time.
findings.
great. That's great.
Is 2-week response period, is that what, did I capture that correctly, Denise? That we
So
would give them?
I think that's great. And what I would say here, Nicole, we're right where you at, say May responses and June findings. How's that? Would that work for everybody to understand process here?
Yeah,
That works. And, you know, I may be skipping ahead to, you know, later on in the agenda, but it's, you know, it's coming up now. Denise, I just wonder, like, I know I've been in like meetings where you'll do a poll on, I don't even know where you'll do a poll. Like it's on your cell phone, and you know, you put in a certain thing and you go in there and you'll start getting some kind of
Immediate
feedback
reaction, yes.
right away. And I know that in the past we've done the questions to all be you know, just a written response, and then the results are basically the written response, and there's, you know, 15 pages, and there's, you know, 100 different responses. And I just wonder if there isn't some addition to SurveyMonkey, if we're using SurveyMonkey, or another similar product where they can just, like, it automatically picks up repeated words or something, a little something besides like pages and pages of, you know, because it is hard to work with. I mean, yeah, I'll just put that out there.
So let me, Lila, it's a really good question, and I will answer it as briefly as I can because I actually have another conflict, another meeting at noon that I need to be at. But what I will say is those pages and pages of output that we gave you were the actual data for the summary report that we gave you last time. There is a software package that really only facilitates the analysis, but doesn't really go through and search for words. It really is used by an analyst to identify themes and sub-themes that are coming forward. For the sheer number of individuals that we're talking about here, I do not think that it makes any sense to invest in that software or to even conduct the analysis with that software. It's just as straightforward in a qualitative approach to analysis to use a spreadsheet, which is what we did last time. And it's really, and if you have multiple people reviewing those responses, you can do an inter-rater kind of reliability and validity of those findings. Now, the benefit that we have now is that we have Christina Jackson on board. We have Kimmy Aseo on board in our office. So we will have multiple staff who can review the documents and provide a more consistent summary for you. So what you got before was really overkill. We only gave it to you so you could do it yourself if you wanted to. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and that sounds great to me. And I like to have the data, but also the summary. And so that sounds
Right.
perfect. Thank you, Denise, for coming up with a solution that's better than what we had in the past.
Well, I'm still, I mean, in some ways, what I'm saying is it's not going to be any different than the past. We'll give you our report and our summary of it and present that to you. And maybe if you want, you can get the full set of pages of narrative yourself if you want to look at that.
Yeah, but the summary would essentially give the themes, which we probably spent 2 or 3 meetings rehashing that last year, where
Right.
if you want to do anything with the data, you just don't have that kind of time.
Right. I am sorry, everyone. Lila, this is great questions. I do need to run. Christina is here on our data team behalf. If you get to the point where you're going to talk about the survey details, if not, I'm happy to be a part of your next meeting or any other meeting if you want to talk further about that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So Nicole, I see you have the word quantitative highlighted.
I just wanted to specify, because it's my understanding, I know Christina could speak to this more, that because these are mostly open-ended questions, it's my understanding that this would be a qualitative survey, not a quantitative. Christina can, I just wanted to specify that because we have actually a difference between, I know that we're going to get to this particular agenda item, or not agenda item, work plan objective here, but just based on the nature of the survey that has been historically, the questions that have been sent out, that it's qualitative.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
That is correct. That is totally correct. And so from what I heard just now from Denise, there will be some work with the data team on the survey results to provide a summary, not just kind of everything that's in every single answer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Okay. All right. We're ready to move on to the next one.
We're good on this objective here. Or goal, I guess.
What's that?
On the work plan, the goal for the survey, we're good on that one.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And I don't know if we needed to review this third one or not. You let me know.
Seems to me that the timeline is something that we're we must abide by with this because of CAB.
I mean, again, I think the August timeline comes down to if we want to inform our recommendations for the policy brief or any budget proposal that CAB is doing, that August would be
Yeah,
the deadline for that.
yeah.
The only question that I have on this or thing that feels unfinished to me is, you know, it's fine to say all members, but, you know, it's less likely that, you know, things are going to move forward. And so maybe next meeting, when we have more participation, you know, we pull this up and just, you know, look for if there are any spaces and places, like if there is someone who wants to commit to, you know, inviting someone for a qualitative interview for one of our meetings. Or yeah, I guess that would be really fall on an individual as opposed to falling to the whole group or to the chair.
Would this be done in parallel as far as a timeline is concerned, or would you be waiting to your June findings to inform that you need to have further conversations with those that responded to the survey?
It's a great question. I mean, I was understanding that this was ongoing up until August.
Okay.
But I don't know, do we have any ideas right now of folks that we need to bring in, or do we prefer to have some survey results and then follow up from the survey results?
Yeah, I would think that maybe the survey results might give us some direction, so to speak, to make that decision, Lila.
Okay.
That would give you
and
like a
then-
couple months to kind of finalize, I guess, your recommendations based on further interviews or however that presents itself.
Great. Maybe we want to put something in there that says conduct qualitative interviews with survey results, or because I think it was very broader before.
Post survey or something.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And then the second point there, look at local and regional needs assessment for reentry population. So maybe that piece is one that can be happening while the survey is being conducted. Maybe that's one that we can move forward from now until next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that was partly a suggestion of mine, was for folks to get, you know, maybe connect with other local cabs. I definitely don't want to dictate what you do in that space. So if that's not something that you guys think you're going to benefit from, I will say that like the Alameda cab, they meet in the evenings. So that might be a problem for folks. And I found out just through my research that San Francisco actually does not have a cab that meets with public meetings. They have a cab, but they're people on the ground doing work with CBOs, just independent of public meetings and stuff. So, but yeah.
Well, the word coordinate means that we would be working with them. So I think,
I guess that's the question, is if you're really coordinating with them, looking to do that, or just more seeking
right,
how they do things,
exactly, Nicole. Yeah,
learning about what they do.
or survey local cabs.
I like that. And what you just shared, Nicole, was helpful. If there are any like writings or publishings that aren't too much, that could be, you know, maybe there's something on each of the local cabs that's been written recently that could be, you know, attached
Yes.
to the next
Yes,
agenda.
Oh, so I know the Alameda cab has a retreat like us, and their minutes was quite detailed as far as the areas that they wanted to focus on. So that might be something that I can at least provide a reference to that you guys can kind of take a look at. But if you want to connect with like the staff of those, I can also connect you to the staff that could help provide, resources.
Yeah, okay.
Alameda Cab has a website that is actually quite, I was looking at their bylaws and I'm like, wait, did they copy ours or did we copy theirs? So that they have a pretty good website on the Alameda Cab, so I can reference that in the minutes.
Item 2 says provide memo. Memo concerning what?
I think the idea there was that you guys were going to inform your recommendations to policy and budget. So whether that's, I guess, in a report out format or
Provide results or?
provide your recommendations on program improvement or introducing new programs and services based
Yeah.
on everything that you've done.
I think that would probably just be a third point as opposed to under the look at local and regional needs, because it would be informed by both of those points.
So like its own, like that.
I think so. Dale, does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. But what's the purpose of the memo?
Mhm. I think it's, so what I've noticed in the last 2 years on the policy and budget subcommittee is that, no, I'm sorry, on the programs and services subcommittee is that policy and budget subcommittee basically, puts together these recommendations. And now I'm learning that that also comes from the vice chair. And so I just want us to be in a place that we've said what we want to say with the work that we're saying at the right time for it to be incorporated. So I think it's been like, they'll get the survey results or they'll hear from us, like this is what they've been focusing on, and then they'll just write up something, somebody will write up something. And so I'm just thinking about, like, is there a way that we can be more proactive with giving them our recommendations in time for them to incorporate them?
Well, maybe we could say,
Present them to one of your meetings, or you present it, you agendize it on their meeting to actually do a presentation. And you guys set a deadline of when you want to be able to do that by.
I would love that. I mean, unless that's like gets us into quorum issues with 2 different subcommittees meeting, is that almost?
I think at
like
that point, I think that you'd be transitioned off of this subcommittee by then, but maybe not.
Yeah,
well,
but
But,
how about provide results and recommendations?
because I want to specify there's 2 deliverables, right? There's the policy brief, which are recommendations that may or may not have funding tied to it. But there's also the policy budget on an annual basis that does have funding tied to it. We've traditionally done like status quo, but you could present something on that policy budget annually that is a new program and service. I have not seen that in my time here, but those are 2 different spaces, right? 2 different deliverables. One that might have more definition once it's adopted by the CCP, where others, the policy budget would be on an annual basis, like you're seeking funding of 10% permanent supportive housing of the Measure X funds to be out, whatever it is that you guys decide, that would actually go on the policy budget proposal.
because if you scroll up, I think we have that written where it says budget recommendations. Okay, so it says in time for inclusion in CAP's policy and budget recommendations to CCP. Okay.
Maybe you say here that it's policy brief, and then, because that's one deliverable, policy brief, and then the policy, the budget proposal narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Because the budget proposal has to have a monetary value to it. It wouldn't be presented without one. Where the policy brief may or may not have a recommendation for some type of.
I like that idea. We can say either or. Maybe we're going to do both. Maybe we're only going to do one. Yeah.
Does that make sense? In time for inclusion in CAB's policy brief and or budget proposal to CCP.
Yes,
Yep, that works for me too.
And then does this language here still okay, or do you want to add more?
I mean, we just don't know what the deliverable will be. If it's a memo, if it's a scheduled there to talk to them. I mean, but it is nice to have something written. So I feel comfortable with leaving it as a memo. But, you know, we have the option to present it to them live if needed or if helpful.
could you say provide findings? And in that way, it could be however they want it.
Right, and however we can give it. I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, provide findings. Yeah, good. That gives flexibility. Good. Now we're ready to,
You guys feel good about this?
yes,
Okay.
and then this is a,
That is saved.
this is an item for voting. So,
It is. Do I have a vote on it? Let me pull up the
Yes.
agenda here.
yeah, and I know,
References going on here. I did,
Doc-
yes, I did put a vote next to it.
so Dr. Cole hasn't been able to join us yet, I don't think. So
Unfortunately not.
it's still up to just you and me, Lila.
Okay. Ready, I got my thumb up already.
How about if you make the motion and I'll second it?
Okay, I motion to approve this updated work plan for 2022.
I second. I guess officially you have to call, yeah, you have to.
Open it up for public
Okay.
comment before we do that.
Yeah,
See if I have any hands here.
is there any comment anyone has? If not, then would you call a roll, Nicole?
Lila
Yes,
and Dale.
Yes,
All right, motion passes unanimously.
wow,
Just want to be mindful of time. What we have till 12:30, right?
right,
If we wanted to dive into the survey questions with maybe a follow-up from possibly Denise's team to provide further feedback offline if we run out of time. But
yeah, could
I
you,
know, Lila, you had, so I have the attachments here and I just wanted to clarify what I have here. So these questions on pages 9 and 10, I pulled from the survey that was distributed in 2000, I guess 19. Well, it was done in November, October 2020, that fall. So that's what these questions are. I just pulled right from because I know we had screenshots and it was a little hard to kind of see. So I just literally just grabbed them from there. And they were slightly dynamic, not as dynamic as you would think dynamic is, but if you were a CBO versus a government agency, there was some questions asked slightly differently. And so that's why I had it broken up by two different,
yeah, that's fine.
This is
I do
basically
have a
what
question.
saw if they selected that they were a community-based organization.
I have a question for item number 4. I thought there are only 3 regions. I don't know why we have other. Please specify. I've only,
There
heard-
might be, well, that's a good question. I don't
I've
know.
al-
I was
I've
not
al-
here when the survey was developed, so I don't have a lot of historical knowledge to input to provide there. Maybe I see Christina's hands up.
I don't have any historical knowledge as well. Maybe that other is just if they serve more than one region, it'll allow them to, I don't know what the format of the survey is, if they're allowed to type in or what that looks like, but maybe that's what it's referring to. I'm
It
not
says
sure.
Please select all that apply. So if they did have multiple, they would be able to select all 3. So maybe it's just we don't provide that option if it wouldn't be a use case.
oh, it does say, please select all that apply.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So I don't think that they would need D, because they could select A, and they could select A, B, and C actually. Highlight that, or however they do it, however they respond to that. And I don't think we need item D.
But before we go into all that, but also that was what 9 and 10 are, and 11 and 12. I don't know who did this, Lila, but it was kind of collapsing some of those questions. Instead of asking them one question that says what was their number one greatest challenge and what was their second greatest challenge, somebody made the effort of collapsing those two questions into one. So this particular 10, 11, and 12 was not what was distributed last 2020. So that's what that was here, was I guess what I was calling the updated version of the future surveys. But I know that you had some call outs that didn't incorporate all of the feedback that was provided in those lessons learned document.
Yeah, so
So let me pull that up.
I was confused by what's there, because that last item you were on is actually a survey, and it's pretty much the similar
It is. It's the same questions. It just collapses. So I'll
Into-
just show you really quickly.
into a different
All on the same
format.
page.
Yeah,
This one, number 5 asks, what's the greatest challenge? This one asks, what's the second greatest challenge?
right.
So if you go to number 5 here, number 5 and 6 are now collapsed to be, what are your 2 greatest challenges?
Yeah, that's fine.
That they're all the same questions, just
Yeah.
those ones that ask what is your first versus your second was collapsed.
But do we need to decide which of these formats we are recommending? This isn't a voting item.
No, but I just wanted to get to this
Yeah.
lessons learned, because I believe Lila had some history here as far as wanting additional changes to the survey that didn't happen, and I just wanted to get clarity on what it was that you were, Lila, that you were referencing.
so the third paragraph, well, yeah, actually, you know, the first 3 paragraphs here are about the survey. So we wrote this at the end of 2020. In 2021, we did not have a survey because we did it so late in 2020 that we felt we didn't need to repeat that, because we basically, had the information from the end of that year. And so really the points in there were, yeah, we said March. That's not going to happen. But I think what we realized is that, this year goes by really quickly, and you have to basically be getting stuff done, each meeting for the survey and getting it out as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we're going to run into something where we're getting results at the end of the year again, and nobody wants to, rerun the same survey at the beginning of next year.
You guys don't meet in January traditionally either. And sometimes even February, depending on when the retreat happens.
Yeah, and then we had COVID too, and we're still have some COVID, but we're less impacted this year than we were with COVID. But the real meat of the lessons learned were that we didn't want to ask for first and second choices, because that just multiplied the responses to all of these answers by 2, and then it was by 4, and then it was by 8. So we noticed that there were repetitive themes amongst the organization, and that if they got to give their first answer for these, that was more helpful for us in, analyzing it across the breadth of the organization. So the numbers don't quite line up, with both of the surveys that we're looking at now, but let's just ask, ask the question, not first and second, just, what
Get rid of
is
that 2 and just get rid of the 2.
Yep, there you go.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it from the lessons learned. Let me pull the lessons learned up and see if I missed something else.
It was referencing the minutes that you provided.
Yeah.
Um,
That's it for the lessons learned. I mean, I'm seeing something else now that I'm looking at this again. So
Reduce the redundancy of some of the survey questions, so it'd be shortened and don't ask the same thing over and over again. So that's what you're referencing.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can go back to the survey, all of these questions in here, okay, so we're taking out the 2. We really wanted it to be like a 5-question survey. I'm just wondering if it's important to know what the role is for somebody within the agency. I mean, at one point, I think we thought it was because we had it there. I mean, I think the name of the agency is helpful. We thought maybe it was like, okay, well, if somebody who's frontline or somebody who's a manager fills it out, maybe that'll color. But I don't know if that's super helpful in our work of like taking these suggestions and ideas and gaps and moving them forward. Do folks
Well, I
want
think there was one point where it actually, we had listed all of the organizations that we are contracted with, and they had a bubble which one they were.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that is this question. I can't recall. I'd have to look back at the actual screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
But we, ORJ had, or the subcommittee had decided to basically put in all the names of whether it was an interagency within the county, you know, it would say public defender, district attorney's office, all the names that you basically see posted in the annual budget for AB 109 at the CCP. We would list all of those CBOs that were contracted by name, and then people would select.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. This is much, I hope this, you know, the summary will help, having a summary of the information, only asking the question one time as opposed to, you know, give us this answer twice, which, you know, that might not be that exciting for folks either. Can you scroll down to the bottom to see where this ends? Okay. Okay, so it's 10 questions long. Okay.
It's 10 questions, but keep in mind that what I want to say, 5 through 10 are they're all open-ended, right? And I don't know, Christina could speak to this better than I can. Is that reasonable to expect respondents to, you know, respond? I mean, what would be the average time to fill out something like that? 7, you know, 5 to 6 open-ended questions like that. I hear you're asking for 2 most important areas. If you narrow that down to just leaving out, you know, 2, it might make it easier for them. But
Yes. Is it important for us to know who completed the form?
yes, because you want to know if everyone is
have-
actually participating in the survey.
We should have the name of the
Oh,
person.
you mean the individual themselves?
Yes.
I would open that up to you guys to decide. I think the important thing is identifying the agency that's actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like we could delete what is your role within the agency. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
Trying to make it a little bit more streamlined. And I mean, I think these questions are pretty standard. It's like, what is your greatest challenge? What is the most important area of growth? You know, any barriers when seeking to reach program goals and objectives? You know, most important area of need for individuals returning to their communities from custody. I think that one's huge. CAB can better support you. I like that. Whether people are going to tell us, you know, we could take 10 off if we want to keep it simpler.
So is there a priority? Like you mentioned 8 being really important. I don't know, Christina, would you like recommend that they move that up since these are open-ended questions, and by the time they get to that, they might be that's just my thought from a priority standpoint, that you prioritize the questions that are most important to you, especially since they're open-ended.
I like that. Let's move
But
that
you
one
make
up.
sure that they could skip over it, and then you can't necessarily control that, but I mean, I guess you can make it required, but
Mhm.
Can I ask a quick question? Because I don't know much about the history of the survey. Can you remind me what the response rate was last year or when it was last distributed?
So this was last distributed in 2020.
Okay,
And we had to send it out twice. The first time, the response rate was very high with nonprofits. And the second time, we got more responses from government agencies. So, you know, we went to a CCP meeting and we said, like, everybody needs to fill this out. Like, let's make this a priority. And so the CCP was like, we'll back you up, maybe we can talk about it. So that was also another suggestion that happened in 2020. I think, no, I'm sorry, that suggestion happened in 2021, was the next time that the survey comes up, that there's more fanfare around it, and that the expectation is communicated to everyone that folks have to fill it out. So it was getting better, but we wanted to make it all the way better with full participation. And Denise would really have the numbers on like the response rate, because she did the survey in 2020.
might be worth for one of you to join the upcoming CCP meeting on April 1st to, I mean, I guess if we're in a good place to say like, it's coming, please, you don't have a choice, submit it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I know Crawford will most likely be there because we're doing a CAB assignments for the 3 new applicants, but might be worth you guys deciding which one of you would want to.
Ask Crawford to add that on. Oh, sorry, Dale.
I already have it on my calendar.
Yeah, it's not a meeting that I own, but I have a placeholder internally for us, but I'm happy to add it for you guys. But once the agenda is posted by Paul Rays, I'll be forwarding out to you. It's usually the Wednesday or Friday before the meeting that he posts it, so.
It is April Fool's Day. I hope that's not a bad omen.
So I guess I know we're out of time, Dale, and I just want to see, like, I got the message from Denise that we needed more time, but I feel like this is ready to go. Like, we've had 2 years to cook this.
Yeah.
Can we formally ask, ORJ to get this survey ready and let us know if there are any more questions about sending it out?
Right.
We kind of identified earlier when Denise was on the call, like response times. So I feel like we could just move it forward from here.
I agree. And I like this format here as opposed to the 2 pages or 3 pages before it. I like this openness.
My only recommendation is that maybe offline, maybe Lila or Dale prioritize the numbers, just so that we know on our end. I did hear that number 8 was really important.
Lila, would you be willing to do that?
I mean, I would just suggest let's move number 8 to the first question, and then the rest of them can
Number 5.
see where they are. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, good.
So then what I'm hearing is then I can take this to Denise for a final review to get her eyes on it, make sure there's nothing else outstanding before other next steps are taken. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds great.
Yeah, we'd love a response from Denise. And then if there are any questions, it sounds like we don't want to launch it until April. And it sounds like there's some work, internally that needs to be done, but if possible, we're good with this, with launching it in April.
Yes, for sure.
With the things that Denise identified as like communicating out to people, that there's going to be time involved and responding, etc.
Your next meeting's not until April 21st. Do you want to see a preview of this before it goes out? And if so, I would ask for one of you to be the point person for that, just because it's quorum issues and having dialogue with
Dale,
basically
do you want
that serial meeting that you was referenced in the journal meeting last month.
Well, I would prefer that you do it, Lila, because you have a previous experience with this. And so if that doesn't overburden you.
It doesn't. I think it's just about getting it out there, and I'm happy to preview it. Yeah.
Great,
It
thank
doesn't
you.
have to be perfect. It just kind of needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Any last minute comments or suggestions? If not, declare the meeting adjourned. Oh, no, we do need I do need to say that our next meeting will be April the 21st from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So April 11th.
We'll coordinate offline because I know Terrence was not able to be here, and we have our agenda planning meeting. That's a non-public meeting with all the chairs of subcommittees on Monday. It might make sense for since you guys were here, that one of you, but we'll coordinate that offline.
Okay, great. Thank you very,
Or at
very
least
much.
one of you inform Terrence of what was the outcome, so he can determine what the agenda items should be for April 21st meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.